Hey folks, ever heard of a truck that looked ready to rule the highway but got killed before it even hit the lot? Let's roll. The first one is Freightliner Powerliner 2. Back in the early 80s, when horsepower still meant something and truckers had diesel in their veins, Freightliner rolled out a beast that turned heads, the Powerliner 2. This rig was supposed to dominate long hauls and heavy loads with a projected output of over 600 horsepower. And keep in mind, back then, anything over 400 was considered outrageous torque. The Powerliner 2 featured a raised roof, ultra-wide sleeper, a prototype digital dashboard, and dual stacks that could wake the dead. The concept was simple: make a rig that screams authority on the highway and doesn't apologize for it. Freightliner's engineers went all out, designing a reinforced frame for oversized payloads and integrating early computer-aided diagnostics, which in the 80s was straight-up sci-fi. But here's the kicker: it never hit mass production. Why? Blame it on the times. The oil crisis was still fresh in everyone's mind, and fuel prices were climbing. Emissions laws tightened, and then Daimler came in and started leaning hard into lighter, more efficient models that could meet global standards. So Freightliner shelved the Powerliner 2. Rumor has it only a handful of prototypes ever made it to testing yards before being stripped for parts. Drivers who saw one in person still talk about it like they saw Bigfoot in a chrome vest. Check out the shot on screen. That squared-off front, those monster stacks, that long wheelbase. This wasn't just a truck. This was America with a fifth wheel. A damn shame we never got to see it breathe fire down I-70. The second one is Kenworth Super COE. Now this one, folks, this one had presence. Back in the late 90s, Kenworth thought, what if we take the cab-over game and give it the attitude of a long nose? Enter the Super COE, a towering slab of American steel that looked more like a locomotive than a truck. Taller than a W900, with more glass than a Florida sunroom, it gave drivers full panoramic visibility and enough interior height to stand straight without bumping your dome. The cab was designed like a rolling penthouse. The sleeper was huge, the storage was endless, and the control panel looked like a damn jet cockpit. It had every creature comfort you could think of: wraparound dash, refrigerator, captain chairs with air lumbar, and enough wiring under the floor to power a small town. But you know what killed it? Regulations and culture. Right when the Super COE was about to hit production, U.S. frontal impact standards changed. Safety tests would have required redesigning the whole front end, and to make matters worse, the cab-over market in America was already on life support. Truckers had fallen head over heels for long-nose conventionals. You see that image on screen? Yeah, that's not Photoshop. That was real. This thing looked like Optimus Prime on steroids. It would have been the king of the rest stops, but instead, it ended up a whisper in trucker folklore. The third one is Magnum. All right, let's talk about the Mac that made old-school drivers raise an eyebrow. The Magnum wasn't your typical bulldog. This rig was all polished muscle, sleek curves, aerodynamic lines, and a cab interior that looked more like a business-class airline seat than a working man's truck. Under the hood, a fire-breathing 600-plus HP Mack E-Tech engine. That thing could pull a mountain backwards, if it had to. It had air ride suspension on every corner, noise insulation that could shut out a thunderstorm, and seats so comfy they made you forget you were hauling 80,000 pounds across I-80. But here's the twist. The Magnum was too damn expensive to build. It was developed in the early 2000s, right as Mack was playing catch-up with the comfort and tech wave brought on by Volvo and Freightliner. They nailed the luxury part, but completely overshot the budget. Building it at scale would have eaten profit faster than a truck stop buffet. Fleets weren't buying luxury. They wanted reliable, affordable, and easy to maintain. And owner-operators? They liked it, but the price tag made them blink twice. Take a look at the rig on screen. Tell me that's not a damn stunner. You've got smooth chrome lines, a raised roof, side skirts, and a stance that screams, "I dare you to pass me." But in the end, Mack shelved the Magnum before it ever had a chance to prove itself. A few made it to test fleets, but it was never mass-produced. Today, spotting a Magnum in the wild is like spotting a unicorn with air horns. The fourth one is International 9800i concept. This one's a heartbreaker for COE lovers. The International 9800i concept was Navistar's attempt to bring cab-overs back in a big way. It was lighter, sleeker, and more aerodynamic than its predecessors. You could practically hear it slicing through crosswinds. The cab was mounted low, had improved visibility, and best of all, a fully redesigned sleeper that didn't feel like a coffin on wheels. There were modern touches, too. An ergonomic dash, pre-wired systems for GPS and electronics, and better weight distribution than anything International had built before. The problem was, nobody wanted cab-overs anymore. In the early 2000s, American truckers had already shifted full tilt toward conventional trucks. Long-nosed Petes and KWs were dominating the highways. Cab-overs were seen as outdated, cramped, and Euro-looking. Not exactly the image most drivers wanted to roll into a truck stop with. The timing just wasn't right. Add to that the DOT's increasing demand for frontal impact safety, and the 9800i died before it ever got the green light. Look at that beast on screen. Clean lines, tight stance, tall cab. It had potential. But in trucking, timing is everything. The 9800i showed up to the party after everyone else had left. The fifth one is Peterbuilt 372. Now here's a truck that looked like it belonged on the moon. The Peterbilt 372, lovingly nicknamed the Anteater, was designed with one goal: crush wind resistance. It was one of the most aerodynamic rigs ever put on the road, and you can tell just by looking at it. But damn if it wasn't ugly. Drivers hated the look. That sloped nose, huge wraparound windshield, and bug-eyed headlights made it stand out, and not in a good way. It didn't matter that it saved serious fuel or had surprisingly decent handling. To most truckers, it looked like a delivery van got busy with a space shuttle. Underneath the shell, though, solid machinery, reliable CAT engines, good ride, and a sleeper that was surprisingly quiet thanks to the design. But image matters, and Pete lovers are loyal. The 372 just didn't look like a Peterbilt. You're looking at it right now. That nose? Iconic, but for all the wrong reasons. Sales were weak, it never caught on, and Pete quickly went back to its roots with the 379. These days, a few collectors have restored them and show them off at truck shows. Ironically, the same folks who laughed at them in the 90s now can't take their eyes off one when they see it polished and parked. The sixth one is Ford HN80. You know Ford, right? King of pickups. But few remember that Ford once tried to take over the big rig game. The HN80 series was their serious shot at the Class 8 market. Developed with Sterling's help to go toe-to-toe with Freightliner and Kenworth. And honestly, It was solid, powerful Cat and Cummins options, strong chassis, and one of the most underrated ride qualities of the early 2000s. The cab was tight but ergonomic. Controls made sense. Maintenance was straightforward. And the grille? That thing looked mean, like it belonged in a steel hauler's dream. But then came the axe. In 1997, Ford sold its heavy truck division to Daimler, the parent of Freightliner. And Daimler wasn't about to let a Ford rig cannibalize its market share. The HN80 was quietly buried, rebranded as Sterling for a few years, and then totally discontinued. Look at the image on screen. That aggressive front, those wide-set headlights, that classic industrial vibe. It deserved better. But in the trucking world, even good trucks get the boot when boardrooms start playing chess. The seventh one is Renault AE Magnum V2. All right, now we cross the pond. The Renault AE Magnum V2 wasn't just a truck, it was a rolling apartment. Flat floor, high ceiling, and the kind of driver space that made American truckers say, "Wait, what the hell is that?" Unveiled in the early 2000s, this thing was built for comfort. The cab was separated from the engine bay, which meant less heat and noise. It had a walk-through interior, top-shelf materials, and a cabin that actually felt like home. In Europe, it was a revolution. But in the US, it never stood a chance. Why? Well, for one, it looked too European. That flat front, tiny wheels, and soft styling didn't scream American power. Plus, it wasn't built to handle our road sizes, DOT specs, or weight standards. And let's be honest, most U.S. truckers weren't ready to give up their long-nosed glory for a rolling toaster, no matter how comfy it was. Still, check that shot on screen. Looks futuristic even now. But it became a victim of poor export strategy, regulation gaps, and cultural misfit. A rig that deserved more road and a little more love from the West. The eighth one is Volvo VN880. Now this one still stings. The Volvo VN880 was supposed to be the crown jewel, the long-haul king that would take over North America's highways like a Scandinavian thunderstorm. Rumor had it, this beast had the quietest cab ever built, thanks to next-gen insulation and a redesigned cab mount system. Under the hood, you had a refined version of the D16 engine, tuned for torque and fuel efficiency. The aerodynamics were dialed in, the grille was more aggressive than the VNL, and the frame was stretched just right for serious weight distribution. Even the sleeper felt like a hotel suite on wheels. It never came. Volvo teased it internally around 2010, gave fleets a glimpse, and then poof. Industry whispers blame new emissions rules, a bloated development budget, and internal politics. Some say the VN880 clashed too hard with the already successful VNL line. Others claim it was simply too ambitious for the economy at the time. Take a look at what could have been. The cab's shape, the chrome trim, the extra deep side skirts. This was Volvo with an attitude. Some drivers swear they saw one in a closed-track test near Greensboro, but no photos ever surfaced. It's become sort of a ghost truck, talked about, rarely seen, never forgotten. The ninth one is Scania T164. Let's face it, Europeans don't really do long nose. But when they did, they gave us the Scania T164. And buddy, this thing was glorious. A big, beautiful V8-powered brute with Swedish engineering and American muscle in its DNA. Launched in the early 2000s, the T164 was Scania's shot at mixing comfort and class with pure pulling power. It had the DC-16 engine, top-of-the-line torque, and a cab that felt like a Scandinavian lodge. You had wood trim, blackout interior options, and driver ergonomics straight out of a luxury SUV. Truckers loved it, but regulators, not so much. With tighter European turning radius laws, stricter emissions zones, and a shift toward urban transport, the long-nose layout didn't fit the future. Even though drivers begged for it, Scania ended the T-Series and doubled down on their COE, cab-over-engine designs. Check out the photo, that polished bull bar, the long hood, the proud grille. It didn't just haul, it posed. These days, if you see one on the road, it's probably headed to a truck show or being passed on the Autobahn by folks who don't realize they're in the presence of greatness. The 10th one is Mercedes-Benz NG1632 Black Edition. All right, let's end with a myth. The Mercedes-Benz NG1632 Black Edition. This rig had turbocharged diesel power, a bold striped livery, and one of the cleanest looking front ends of any MB truck of that era. The interior, all black leather, special badging, full gauge clusters, basically the AMG of long-haul trucks. But before it got its time in the spotlight, Daimler pulled the plug. A shift toward the new SK platform, rising costs, and tougher European emissions rules in the late 80s sealed the fate of the Black Edition. Only a handful were built, some say less than 25 units. On screen right now, that's not just a truck, that's an artifact. It's a reminder of what Mercedes could have been if they kept their foot on the performance pedal. Collectors go crazy for this one. Finding a clean NG1632 Black Edition is like finding a mint 67 Mustang with a sleeper cab. That's it, folks. 10 rigs that never got their chance. If you're into trucks with soul and stories, you know what to do. Subscribe and keep the rubber burning.